Anxiety and fear concerning the immigration plan of President-elect Donald Trump.
Many are worried about the impact it could have on them and their families. 6 News' Johan Marin shares how some local organizations are helping ease those concerns.
Inside these walls, you'll find one of the largest refugee-led organizations in Nebraska.
We are one of 3 organizations here in Omaha that does refugee resettlement. We provide extended case management. We work in workforce development and education.
We help out parolees, asylees, people in various levels of immigration processes.
The International Council for Refugees and Immigrants provides a variety of services to make sure those coming from out of the states transition to life in a new country.
And coming to a foreign land with no support system can be very challenging.
Since Election Day, Cigar says it's been more challenging for the clients he serves. After President-elect Donald Trump won a second term in the White House, he says he got calls from people concerned about how immigration policies could be impacted. Trump has promised mass deportations and a closed border.
There's a huge anxiety and uncertainty when it comes to what the next 4 years will look like for this growing demographic. We know a little bit about what to expect.
Cigar isn't alone. Angela Kane, an immigration attorney, is also getting calls from worried people. Kane says she's reassuring that laws surrounding immigration usually go through a process before any changes happens.
Giving them information regarding how their process would change or wouldn't change. Mostly, for the most part, we are just letting them know the process is not going to change anytime soon.
Kane also says it's important now for those from out of the states to know their rights.
We have due process here in the United States, and even persons that are not here lawfully have due process rights. They have the right to go in front of an immigration judge. They have a right to apply for certain relief to stay in the United States. That process usually takes years.
Kane and Cigar say there are a lot of unknowns they are wavering through, but for now they're remaining hopeful for the future. On your side, I'm Johan Marin, 6 News.
For more information about immigration rights and resources, go to our website, WOWT.com.